Good morning and welcome to Russell Does Stuff. And my name is Russell. I work Mondays for 6 hours, Tuesday for 6 hours, and then Wednesday. Whatever I don't get done on those 2 days, I'll finish up. And then that leaves me the afternoons and the rest of those days that week to pursue things that interest me. If someone calls and wants a side job, I can say yes to it and tell them what day I want to do it and make some extra money and take care of it. This morning, when I got up, I had an interesting subject on my mind. The subject was divorce. You see my body language moving around. Why is that? Why was I thinking about divorce this morning? Well, I have gone through a divorce. About 15 or 16 years ago, I went through one. And I don't know why it was on my mind, but it was. My anniversary for that divorce was St. Patrick's Day, of all days. I don't mind it. I think it's funny. Anthony Robbins said that when you get up in the morning, you're supposed to have positive thoughts, and your thoughts that you have when you just wake up are going to affect your whole day, you know. And I'm so far removed from that experience that it doesn't affect me anymore. Okay. Some of you might be going through a divorce right now. You might be entering into one. You might be a couple years removed from one. You may never ever get divorced because you're not married. So it's not the end of the world. At the time, in some cases, it feels like the end of the world. You know, you get depression, you get anxiety. I have an ex-friend that went through a really big divorce because he owned a lot of money. She didn't make any money, so now he's stuck paying her alimony for a long time. And he doesn't like it, but those are the cards he was dealt. You know, is life fair? Sometimes it's not, you know. But he has rebounded. His business is doing good. His kid's doing good. He's dating, women, and he's moved on, and he's got his smile back. You know, what did he lose? I don't know. I don't know if he lost anything really. You know, maybe his ego was bruised a little bit, or whatever. You know, everyone's situation's different. All right. I lost everything. When my divorce took place, there was a recession going on. And I wasn't making any money. My customers weren't paying me. I had employee issues. I didn't own the buildings that I was operating out of, which was a big issue. I wasn't able to pay rent on some of the facilities that my businesses were living in. When you marry somebody and their parents are lawyers, you pretty much don't stand a chance. And I didn't stand a chance, and I knew it. I was in a pen full of bulls, and they were fixing to run me over. So I didn't get a lawyer. I didn't fight back. I didn't do anything. That was probably the most quietest I've ever been in my life about anything. If they drove by, I didn't say anything. I just looked at the ground. I continued walking in the direction I was walking in. They filled out some sort of a agreement that said I could stay in my house for 3 months. And then in November, I had to move out. So that's what I did. I gave them everything, the house, the furniture, everything. I was friends with the neighbor next door, and he offered me half his house. Now, I never realized this, but most of my friends are single, or they've been divorced, or they will not get married. All of them, except for I think 2 people that I know are married. Everyone on the Andy Griffith show was single except for the drunk. He was married. So I moved into my neighbor's house with my daughter and my pillow and my clothes. You know, car keys and a wallet and a cell phone. And I started over. The divorce wasn't finalized yet. They sent the divorce papers to a different address so that it would make it difficult for me to participate in it, I guess. You know, maybe if I had hired an attorney, they would have had an address to send the paperwork to. So they sent it to one of my businesses with a different address on it, you know, so. Dirty pool, but that's fine. I didn't know I was divorced until someone at church told me, hey, your divorce is final. It is? They go, yeah. I said, all right, you know, all right, cool. So I went to the courthouse and I looked it up on that, you know, microfiche thing that they had that goes, and it landed right on, you know, my situation. Yep, I'm single. And it's interesting that they tried to move the date of the finalization for it from St. Patrick's Day to another day. What did they want to move it to Valentine's Day or something? They didn't like St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. So that's the deal with that. What this video is about is if you're facing a divorce, a new day is gonna come. All right, you're gonna overcome it. I overcame it. You know, just take it with a grain of salt. If you're in a divorce, you know, we're men. We can, you know, and there's women out there that are tough and strong. You guys can rebuild if, you know, you don't like the husband you were married to and he did bad things to you and stuff, and you know, you're strong enough, you have it inside of you to start over also. You know, I don't know what the research is on men struggling with divorce, but I've heard some things, you know, it's really tough on men, especially when there's children involved, you know. The unknown is scary, you know. So, men, you have to be tough, you know. Don't lose your temper, don't get angry, you know. It's going to be the toughest thing you probably ever do, you know. But like with my friend, I was on the phone with him an awful lot during his depression, you know. And I kept telling him, you're going to be all right. You're on the other end of this, you're going to be fine. And you know what? He was fine. He was dating so many girls, he didn't even have time for Russell Does Stuff no more. Unless he needed something broke, then he'd call me, you know. Divorce. Now what? You're divorced. Now what? Well, don't make this mistake. Don't recycle the same person you were married to. We tend to recycle the same person, and then we go through the same stuff over and over and over again. All right. Just be mindful of that, okay? Do not recycle that same person. I gave that some thought after I got remarried. Did I recycle the same person? I'm going to say no. The person I got remarried to is different than the other one for a lot of reasons. Her parents aren't controlling. They're not always in our business and stuff like that, which is refreshing. Business and marriage, they go hand in hand. They're the same thing. A marriage, you need to run it like a business, okay? Or the wheels will fall off of it. You know, most people fight about money and stuff like that, you know. And it has to be looked at as a marriage, okay? It's good to have two incomes, you know. If you can overcome your differences with that person you're thinking about getting a divorce with, it is easier to be married to somebody because you do have benefits like income. You know, you both can be working on the same goals, you know, like paying the house off or, you know, fixing the house, you know. It's a partnership. It's a partnership in business, and it's called marriage. I know people that have been married 3 or 4 times, and I don't understand that. You know, some of these movie stars out there have been married 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. You know, I don't think. I think they have a lot of money, and I don't think they're worried about starting over. You know, like Kevin Costner, I think his situation really hurt him a lot, but he can start over. He still has his health. You know, so I started over from scratch, from nothing. I lived in a tent. I I let the divorce affect me for a certain amount of time, and then it was time to move on. Okay. And there's tons of videos on mindset and all that stuff, but when it comes right down to it, everything that we go through are emotional. Everything's driven by emotion. You know, your thoughts that you have uh, will trigger your emotion. You know, so I have a pretty good life after my divorce. Um, I started a business, another business. I became successful in that business. I reached financial goals and stuff. And I probably would have reached those financial goals in my first marriage, but it would have came with a lot of roadblocks and headache and stuff like that, you know. So that situation, they were trying to control me, you know, where I'm not being controlled by anybody in this marriage. And that gives you room to be, you know, creative and stuff. And um, I didn't make any mistakes in this marriage yet. I mean, we're still married. It's been 11 years or so. But I learned from my mistakes. So the chance I'm going to make those same mistakes in this marriage is pretty slim because I've been down that road once before. So I have a friend that he, you know, he always says, "Man, I ain't getting divorced. You know, I like my stuff too much, you know." And he's right. He's, you know, when you get divorced, it destroys your world that you have for that moment. But there's another world that's waiting for you that you don't see and you haven't experienced yet, you know. It's interesting how things in life work, you know. The guy the Andy Griffith Show, who was married, was always drunk, and he was always sitting in jail. I had to reshoot this video because the dogs started playing and started running back and forth, and Wayne ran the camera over, and was a horrendous crash. Everything went everywhere, so I didn't get frustrated. I put him in the house to let him settle down. I dusted myself off. I got back out here and I made this video on divorce. I didn't get a lawyer. Maybe you should get a lawyer, you know. It's totally up to you, you know. Maybe my ex-wife was cheating on me, maybe she wasn't. Maybe she didn't like me anymore. Or maybe she still did like me, you know. None of that stuff matters. If somebody wants to do something, I don't stand in their way. I let them do it, you know. I'll ask, you know, hey, don't leave, but I'm not going to stand in someone's way from leaving or pursuing what they want to pursue, you know. And I think that's the toughest thing in divorce. If you're the victim or you know, maybe there's no victim in it. There's just two people don't like each other anymore, and you know, and no one's stopping each other from leaving, you know. And those are the easiest divorces. I have an attorney that does divorces, a friend that does divorces, and he's like, they just sit in the office, they split everything up, they high five each other, write a check, and it's over with, you know. I thought it was the end of the world for me when I got divorced, and you know what? It wasn't. So I hope this gives hope to people out there that are going through this. I've been wanting to make a video like this for a while. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an attorney. This is my experience, and I'm sharing some of the things that I went through. I'm not going to live my life being a victim of a divorce. I'm not going to wish ill will against the person that divorced me. Okay. I wish everybody on that side of the fence the best and merriest and happiest life that they possibly can have. Sometimes I think I should write a letter to that person's mother and say, well, I did everything I said I was going to do during that union in another union, you know, and, you know, but I'm not going to do that. Because that's just living in the past. I'm not living in the past anymore. I'm living in the future. You know, I'm thinking about projects I want to do on the outside of my house, and, you know, working on some of my Jeeps and stuff, you know. I moved forward so much that it doesn't even affect me anymore. Well, this is Russell with Russell Does Stuff, and like I said, if you guys can get something positive out of this, it's like a business video. Marriage is a business, you know. You break up with the partner that you've been in business for a long time, which I was in a partnership with someone in a business. The same thing, you know. Court may get involved, court might not get involved, you know. Well, I appreciate every single one of you. If you like this kind of stuff, hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next one.